in between, and I think it would be good to maybe explore those. But if it's required by the PUD and it's required by code, I don't know if I'll be able to get around it. I'm just saying that I have too many questions today to vote yes or no.
Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yeah, I guess I'm a little confused as well. Sir, you're putting in $1 million generator. I find it hard to believe this is your first rodeo with going to cities and planning departments and planning boards. And you have to see for us that you have two denials coming from two bodies that really dig into these details. And obviously there's a code compliant part of this that you haven't met. So the way I'm reading this, the way I look at it is there was a minor amendment that allowed for the construction of this generator. And that's probably what got approved to get you started. But part of that approval was the plans that were submitted with the minor amendment. You had to provide, or you have to provide a brick screen wall along the north and the east. So there's really no way around that. Otherwise, if you agreed to that and that's what it approved, you wouldn't be here now for this part. Otherwise, it seems like you're trying to get around it with this major approval. But so you have this wall, and then you have the trees as well. But the problem I'm having is the pictures you have for existing. Do you have any existing pictures without the generator already in place? Because I'm visualizing a tree that's 40 years old, and you're going to put one in that's 8 foot tall.
Well, we've got, I mean, that's what it looks like without the extra trees, but the generator is sitting there.
Do you have any pictures without the generator in place?
Probably not in this presentation right now, no.
And then a few photos forward where you're traveling through the neighborhood, I could have swore one of them were an OPPD box and maybe not a generator, but that's just something for you to work on when you come back. So I think what we need to do here is, like I said, you're putting in $1 million generator. Part of the bid is you're gonna have to put in this brick screen wall and the trees. So it's how do we get to that? So again, the minor amendment was approved for you to start work based on what was gonna happen. Otherwise, right here in the analysis it says, and hopefully you guys read this because this is your job, not mine. It says the planning department recommends denial of this request for what you hear today. Basically utilizing the trees along the east and the south for property line screening. And then it gives you the code that deals with generators, not the code for, say, your average everyday screening. So there are other people ask questions, but I know what's involved in this, especially with the cost that's associated. I'm sure you have workers that are in town probably doing work here, but we need to figure out how we get this project moving forward.
Sure.
Because I don't want to deny it, but I won't go against the planning board and planning department on this particular issue. It's not our fault that you have this big project and you didn't show up for the meetings to get yourself prepared. Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I asked a question earlier, and it was about the permit, and I think you represented that it was approved, and it's not. I've been informed by the planning department that the permit for the construction of the expanded generator was not approved. So it appears the work that's being done today is being done without the permit. So you can, what I was trying to do earlier was figure out a way that they could do this without any further delay and be able to put with the wall. So I am reminded by the planning department that they can do this under the minor amendment. They can apply for it under the minor amendment with the wall, and it would be approved. What they're trying to do here today is do it without the wall, which then requires the major amendment. So I'm going to be, I apologize for asking you not to make a motion, because I am actually going to make the motion to deny. And the reason being is that, and I believe Mr. Holtum even said that if it was denied, that they would go ahead and figure out a way to do it with the wall. So knowing that they can proceed with a minor amendment with the wall, I am going to make a motion to uphold the planning board's recommendation for denial.
I'll second that. I agree with that analysis. We can't have a generator without screening occur, and so if this is the most expedient process to pursue, I wish to have that happen and grant that authority to the planning department to make sure happens. I would be supportive of that too. Any further discussion or any further lights? Motion and a second to deny. Roll call.
Johnson. Yes. Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 17, to consider a Class C liquor license application for the Good Life Sports Bar and Grill located at 1203 South 180th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 17 is today. Proponents, please. Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue, here on behalf of the applicant. If I may just give you a brief background on the application to let you all know where the applicant stands and just a little additional background. So this was the purchase for the Good Life locations in the metro area. This is the only one in the city of Omaha limits. A temporary operating permit was granted mid-July to Mr. McKeever and his business partners. They've been operating it since. It is still the Good Life in concept, but as you or as many of you heard at the May 18th hearing for revocation for the seller's license, operations are not the same. So he is complying with the Liquor Control Act. All employees have to have training. Liquor Control Act or Liquor Control Commission approved training for all employees. A couple other items may be of interest on the application. There's a question that notes, are you borrowing any money from any other source? Out of an abundance of caution, we advise Mr. McKeever and his partners to check yes, because as is custom, you purchase a business and then the rest of the sum is paid over a course of years, and that's the case here as well. So we want to be sure that we were transparent about that. And then lastly, is brought to our attention, the seller did have a bus that was used between locations. Mr. McKeever and his partner are not utilizing that. And if they do and decide to go that route, we will have to go to the Public Service Commission and the Liquor Control Commission to get license for that bus as well. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Hi, Aaron McKeever with Good Life, 1411 South 200th Avenue Circle.
Here to answer questions?
Yes.
Thanks. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Looks like we have one here.
Chris Wagner, 11620 M Circle. I'm the Executive Director of Project Extra Mile. We are working towards preventing alcohol-related harms in the community, and we're here to convey on behalf of our coalition our concern with the lack of accountability for alcohol retailers that break the law, especially when those violations result in serious injury or death. We're also opposed to the upgrade of the previous license from an on-sale only location to an off-sale location as well, just based on the research that's available that shows that those off-sale locations carry a greater amount of risk for the community with regard to alcohol-related harms. The applicant noted to KMTV for their July 22nd article that he expects to retain all employees from previous ownership. And based on what the council heard in terms of testimony from former employees of the Good Life, there was, it was indicated there was a culture of allowing underage drinking, both among the servers and the management. So obviously we're concerned if those employees are retained, what is the applicant's plan for changing that culture? I'm encouraged that he's going to be training all of his employees. However, there's really not a sufficient evidence to show that that will reduce alcohol-related harms. And so it's really important that the current or the proposed applicant is conveying the importance of following the law and that they're serious about preventing underage drinking. We partner with local law enforcement. We have for many years, since 1997, to help coordinate alcohol compliance checks in the Omaha metro area. Since 1997, we've checked nearly 14,000, we've conducted nearly 14,000 checks. And out of the 1,651 sales that did occur to minors during those operations, 854, more than half of those, checked the minor's ID and still sold the alcohol. And it's not a leap of faith to assume that many of those had been trained, had continued or completed the Liquor Control Commission, the trainings that are approved by the Liquor Control Commission. So again, it's important to know how is the applicant going to convey the seriousness of preventing underage drinking to his employees. And then finally, I just want to take this opportunity to, I don't know if you're aware, but the Good Life at this location, it was not held accountable for those sales to minor. So on December 25th of last year, there were multiple sales to underage individuals and intoxicated individuals. And the council at the time, this council in May, opted not to go forward with a revocation hearing. And subsequently, the Liquor Control Commission never held a hearing on those sales to minor. So this business was never held accountable for those violations and serious ones. And I think that sends a message to the industry that, you know, people aren't taking this as serious as they should. You know, words are great, but actions speak louder than words. And so for these reasons, we'd ask that you recommend denial. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I'll go in reverse order, I think. Mr. Wagner, could you come back just for a second, please?
Chris Wagner, 11620 M Circle.
Thanks, and I want to thank you and your organization for what you do. I think you make a truly, you're very impactful in what your efforts are, and I know it's an uphill battle, but do appreciate your efforts. I do want to, I know statistics make for good arguments, and you talked about the 14,000 checks and the 1,500 or so that were sold to minors. How many of those, do you know, were sold to licenses that Mr. McKeever or the Hymans have?
To the class of license you're referring to?
How many of the 1,500 or so, I think it was your number.
1651.
1651, thank you. Were sold to minors. How many of those were sold under the licenses that Mr. McKeever or the Hymans, I believe is how you pronounce their name? How many to those license holders were those sold?
I guess I don't follow your question. You're not looking for the class of, so I
No,
referenced.
I'm asking if we're going to the applicant and if there are any violations.
That I do not know. I was simply noting the importance of going beyond just looking at the ID.
Okay. So, but your argument then is more kind of a general statement and not directed toward any license holdings that any of these owners have.
In this particular instance, that's correct. If you would allow me to expand, I would like to, but I defer to you.
Well, I think you answered the question. That
Okay.
We don't know then, or there is no, they don't have any violations as far as any records that we have. So thank you. Now I'll ask Mr. Kelly and Mr. McKeever back up to the podium, please. I guess go ahead and say your names.
Yep,
and
Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Ave.
Okay.
Aaron McKeever, 1411 South 200th Avenue Circle.
Okay, thank you. And obviously, no further involvement and ownership at all with Mr. McMahon, is that correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and then the financial arrangement that you kind of alluded to, Mr. Kelly, I assume that there's a note being paid back to Mr. McMahon over time for the purchase of the business.
Yes, precisely. The majority of the purchase price
Okay.
has already been paid.
One of the things I was going to, you beat me to the punch a little bit. What we found out after talking with Mr. McMahon a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, that there was a party bus that was being run through these operations too, which was doing so illegally. So that was one of the questions I was going to have today was, is the party bus still going to operate? And I think you've answered that the answer is no, because
No.
you have to go to the Public Service Commission and the Liquor Control Board because it needs its own license.
Yep, 2 separate licenses from those aforementioned.
Okay, because that was, Mr. McMahon was very blatant in advertising that. It was on Facebook. It was very well known that that's something that you could do. So I'm glad to hear that that's not going to happen. Then Aaron, if you wouldn't mind, I'll ask kind of a general question. I'll let you, take it as deep as you want to do, but what are you going to do differently?
Well, with my experience in owning pitch and jams in the past, I mean, we've had no violations, and with that, it comes with training, and we have layers of training that come down from ownership to management to our GM. Our employees through Good Life they're going to take a course, Serve Safe Alcohol. So that's for the servers, managers, and bartenders.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And I think it's been stated publicly by you that you want to keep, I think, as many of the employees and management that are willing to go through that additional training and want to continue employment there. Is that correct?
Correct. I think what was stated prior was that all employees were staying. There has been some turnover, and it's been understood to the entire staff that we do not serve to minors.
Okay, thank you. And I'll say it because I think it's, it's in the application, but also, and you just mentioned too, your previous ownership and relationship with both Jams and Pitch, and your course record has been, I don't think you've had any violations in the past, or?
No.
Yeah, thank you. I'll bring it, I had a constituent actually asked me or emailed me something along these lines, and I found the KMTV3 news account on it, and it said something. The comment that was given to me was, I think he thinks he's just going to get it because it's going to be easy, because he stated he had no problem when he was getting it for Barrel and Vine. And I don't think you meant to say, I'll put words in your mouth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you meant to say that you thought it was a slam dunk. I think you were saying that because of your past operations and your past record is that, and there's no violations other than maybe some speeding tickets, that's why you thought that you had confidence that you would be able to do this.
That's correct.
Okay. I think that's all I had at this point. So thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Well, I think Brinker asked my question, but I want to make sure that I'm clear and that everybody's clear that Mr. McMahon has no financial interest. I see the carryback provision, and I understand how that works. And sometimes when a business starts to go south, there's a consultative arrangement for the prior owner to have some participation. It's in his best interest that you're successful. And I want to just be sure that he is no part of this business going forward.
Not at all.
Okay.
And if I could, Councilman Rowe, just to add to that, if he ever were to, it would be up to you and the Liquor Control Commission to let him back in. So he doesn't just get a fly back in if Mr. McKeever and his partners decide not to continue the business.
And Mr. Kelly, I saw you wanted to add something a little while ago. Would you
Yeah,
get the floor to do that if you'd like to?
Thanks. I just wanted to rebut, but Councilman Harding's questions really took care of that. But with the exception of one, that's a Class C. That's just a preference for businesses to do some carry out, which is fairly common in the marketplace in Omaha.
Thank you. And I would just add to some of the discussion here that we did check, of course, to make sure there were no connections. We did in fact check substantially that ownership had changed, and we did, and we're poised to repeal the last license, unlike inconsistent with some testimony that was given today. The former council, previous to a few council members here, did delay the matter pending an outstanding investigation that was underway. I was skeptical of that delay, but that did continue, and that investigation continued. And once it was clear charges were going to be made, this council was poised to repeal that license, and I think that's what led to the sale of the business. So it wasn't that this council was not taking action. In fact, I think that's why we're here today. Ms. Melton.
And thank you. And you just said what I wanted to make sure was said, to say that there was no accountability whatsoever. There's actually charges that have been filed. He's lost his business. I can't imagine, at least this council, while any of us are on it, approving a liquor license for Mr. McMahon based upon what I saw. And I think the charges that he may be facing, I don't want to get into that, but to say that we didn't hold him accountable is untrue. And in fact, we had it scheduled for our council meeting, I believe 2 weeks ago. We were going to do it the last Tuesday in July, but we found out that that the sale had happened. And the last thing I want to do is be punitive against innocent people who were employees of the Good Life, because they employ a lot of people at all the different locations. It's not just one. The liquor license goes to everybody. And I don't think that there's any justification to shut it down and punish people that had nothing to do with the incident, because I think it was Mr. McMahon is the one that was directing employees from what we saw at the one hearing. And he was the one that's solely responsible, not most of the good employees that have been employed there for a while. So I appreciate the fact that you've bought the business and that there are employees that are keeping their jobs, but as any good business owner, sometimes they don't all fit. And so figuring out who's the right fit and not is your job as the new owner. But I was very impressed to see here, you've been in Omaha you've been in Omaha a lot longer than this, but consistently since 2012 at 3 different places and have had no violations. And I want to make that very clear. That's the kind of responsible bar owner that we would like to see, and I hope to see that continue.
Yes, we just want to be a good neighbor in our communities, and obviously would enjoy all of you coming into our establishments, and that's all we want to be, as a good neighbor. And I mean, I don't have children, but in terms of underage drinking, I mean, there's just no tolerance for that.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate that. As parents, we appreciate that because we do count on bar owners to be responsible, and that is what we need for the safety of our young children. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 17 is approved,
Thank
7
you.
to 0. Item 18, to consider a Class I liquor license application for Pepper Jack's Grill located at 510 South 72nd Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 18 is today. I believe we have the applicant by Zoom, if that's still available to be shown. All right, thank you. Mr. Al-Kindi, we're going to unmute you here in a second. All right, your name and address, please.
Amar Al-Kindi with Pepper Jack's Grill, 11470 Bowman Avenue. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any proponents today on number 18? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Aye.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 18 is approved, 7 to 0. Item 19, to consider a Class D liquor license application for NP Mart 11 located at 3536 Q Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. The applicant, please.
Mr. President, members of the council, Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue. Here on behalf of the applicant, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move to approve.
Second, roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 19 is approved, 7-0. Item 20, to consider a special designated liquor license for Crescent Moon Ale House located at 3578 Farnham Street for an Oktoberfest event on September 24th and 25th from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. with music ending at midnight each night.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. The applicant, please.
Candace Gladwin, 3578 Farnham Street, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Amy Kruger, Operations Manager, 2727 South 41st Street is my address. Here to answer any questions.
Thanks. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 20 is approved, 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 21, to consider a special designated liquor license for the Septemberfest event located at 455 North 10th Street in Lot D on September 3rd from 5 p.m. to midnight, September 4th and 5th from noon to midnight with music ending at midnight each day, and September 6th from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. I'll note that I spoke to the applicant before the meeting. We do require applicants to come down and be present for these meetings. But having spoken to them previously and having this be an annual event we've seen many, many times, and there being no changes to their format, I thought it was acceptable they not have to be here today. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
21 is approved, 7-0. Item 22, to consider a Class C liquor license application for Azul Sports Bar located at 5132 L Street. Ace Communications in opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 22 is today. The applicant, please.
Michael Polk, 2712 South 87th Avenue, here with the applicant, Alejandro Centeno, behind me. Here to answer any questions. And I would just like to inform the council that we have agreed to some stipulations regarding the license with the law department. And those were signed and presented prior to this hearing today.
Thank you. I think we'll hear about those here in a minute. I'll take any other proponents today. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Wiesen, would you like to come up and present the city's agreement with the applicant so we all know?
Ryan Wiesen, Assistant City Attorney. We're here today as a result of a long-form request by the City Council earlier this year due to a number of continuing issues at Azul Sports Bar, including some disturbances, noise violations, and things of that nature. That led us to the current application today and the number of stipulations that should have been distributed to the council before the meeting in an attempt to address some of these things. These include a requirement that the applicant provide contact information to the Southwest Precinct Captain and Omaha police officers so they can facilitate a communication and be easily contacted in the event of any disturbance or emergency. Training requirements for the applicant and managers. Requirements for indoor security to terminate appropriately any disturbances that might happen. A requirement that the applicant hire at least 2 certified law enforcement officers of the state of Nebraska for a period of 1 year on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings in an attempt to prevent disturbances and to address some of the crowd and noise concerns that were occurring after hours at the premises. A requirement to post signs indicating that the premises is closed between the hours of 2:30 a.m. And I believe 7 a.m. to again help facilitate that issue with the neighbors of it being overcrowded and people loitering and causing issues after the bar closed at night. In addition to some lighting requirements, some requirements that the applicant follow the directed health measures and things of that nature. We believe that these stipulations will help address some of these concerns while preserving the city's ability to check in on them periodically to make sure that they're being followed, and if there are continued violations of the Liquor Control Act or these stipulations, there would be an ability for the Liquor Control Commission to have an immediate show cause hearing on why the license should not be canceled, suspended, or revoked. In addition to, the City Council would maintain its authority to move to cancel the license if it felt appropriate.
Thank you. Thanks, we appreciate that overview. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Polk, if you want to come up, please, and on your way up, I want to thank Mr. Weesing with City Law, obviously, for the work that he's put into this. As you know, we're at this step because there are no other steps. These stipulations that you're agreeing to with your client, and they can come up too if they'd like. We're at this point because we don't have steps further to go. These stipulations that you're going to agree to, they're very serious. So I want to make sure on the record that you're making this request to the council today to amend your application for the Class C liquor license to include the stipulations that you and your client has signed.
Yep. On behalf of FAMA LLC Azul Sports Bar, that is correct.
Okay, because then obviously in what you read, the next steps are the Liquor Control Commission, I believe, and it probably wouldn't be good when you came before us after that. So I wish you luck. I know things have been better than they were, but unfortunately, the events that preceded to this day has got us to these stipulations. So I'd make if there's no other lights, I'd make a motion to approve based on the stipulations of the amendment to just amend their liquor license application.
So that'd be a motion to amend to include the stipulations.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second that. No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Motion
As amended.
As amended.
Second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passed
you.
7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearing on agenda items number 23 and 24 were held on July 27th. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
I'll note that number 37 has been withdrawn from the agenda. So the public hearings on agenda items number 25 through 36 and 38 through 44 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent.
Hello, Sarah Johnson, 2316 North 52nd Street. I won't take much time because it's been a long day, but I am here to talk about number 41, which is talking about a 2019 flood event. And I feel like it's just important that we recognize that climate change is real and that these 100-year, 200-year events are actually turning into like 2-year events. And I just feel last time, I guess it was the 10th, I believe, of July, we were wondering kind of where the city's statement on this stuff was. The mayor had a press conference while city council was meeting. I'm not sure if that's happening right now. I'd really just like to know why there wasn't much more of a city response to this historic issue. Buildings were like removed from their foundations. There's kind of a lot of like hearsay controversy going around. Like, did it have to do with the construction at the Jean Leahy Mall? I think it's about flooding. Could we then, I could make it relevant to all the sewer money. We could, I mean, okay, point taken, but I think that like, we can't just ignore these types of things. And I guess if you want to, I will make it specifically to this money that we're spending on repairing the seawall. I just think that we need to have a better plan for flooding and issues like this, like we're just going to keep dumping money into something that we know is just going to continue to flood. And I just think that, climate change was brought up at, during the election cycle. And I just think that we really need to get real about it and have a proactive situation instead of just continuing to react and deny. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on these items? Seeing none, is there a motion? Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 45, a resolution to approve a settlement agreement in the amount of $42,000 for the Robert Bartlett versus Quinn Swokonos and City of Omaha.
Public hearing and vote on number 45 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 45 is approved, 7-0. Item 46, an ordinance to amend multiple sections of Chapter 34 of the Omaha Municipal Code to establish procedures and rules for the use and lease of public right-of-way.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Item 47, an ordinance to accept the bid from Priority One Courier and Delivery LLC to provide delivery and sorting services to various Omaha Public Library facilities.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Are there any proponents?
My name is Cindy Maxwell Ostick, and I live at 16626 Harney Street here in Omaha. And I'm here as a proponent for Ordinance 42640. We must provide whatever funds are needed for Omaha Public Libraries to continue their good work. I'm a fan of our libraries every day, and I'm especially thankful for the Omaha Public Library's services to our community throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, including for school children in need of internet access. Offering boosted Wi-Fi in the public library parking lots has been important to many students across our city. It struck me that parking lots were discussed by city councilors earlier today. Yes, it's important to be careful about the safety of our children during drop-off and pickup lines in the school parking lots. As a mother to 3 school children, it's disappointing to me that the Omaha City Council is letting public school families down regarding other safety issues. There's been no discussion.
All right, we got to stick to the agenda item,
about
please.
the
Number 47.
pandemic and navigating back to school. Why aren't we following CDC?
I'm sorry, but number
and
47 is
Douglas
about library
County
facilities, and I'll ask you to have
recommendations?
in your remarks if that's a direction you're going.
Thank you. I just don't know where else to go to be heard about this.
Thank you.
Very disappointing.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 47? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 48, an ordinance to approve an agreement with Women's Center for Advancement in the amount of $49,171.18 to provide partial funding for 1 full-time client attorney and 1 full-time victim advocate.
Public hearing on number 48 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 49, an ordinance to approve sanitary sewage system revenue bond series 2021 in the amount not to exceed $31 million.
Public hearing on number 49 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 50 through 70, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:37.